Our third lightning talk is going to be by Fiacre Mushimire, talking about designing technologies for societal impact.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Fiacre Mushimire. I'm the digital transformation lead at SIMFRI. SIMFRI is a Cape Town-based think tank. And unlike my colleagues, I have 5 minutes, so I decided to tell you a story. And my story is going to be a bit controversial because I'm going to tackle the issue of data privacy regulation. And I want to argue that when the GDPR came out in 2016, it sets a really, really bad precedency for the rest of us. We created a legal platform that gives some individual rights and others not. The data protection laws that we are seeing around, like the one we just, for example, passed in Rwanda, is always aimed at the protection of our citizens. The GDPR does exactly the same thing. It sounds like a great idea for your citizens, but we're discussing about borderless services that are accessed by anyone else, and we are creating a two-tiered market. This is really bad because this protectionism that we're starting to enforce on the data side itself is going to have very big consequences in a negative manner. And I'll give you an example. So every time someone travels from Kenya, they come here, and you need to use mobile money services. You have to get a new SIM card here. So you leave your information here with an entity that doesn't care about any of your rights. You can't enforce them. The government of Rwanda is not going to enforce them. And you are basically being left in some kind of gray area where your information is fair game. And I wanted to argue that this is not the right way to do it. The same thing even becomes worse when we consider the impact that this is going to have on our ACFTA. We are encouraging free movement of people, free movement of goods, but what about free movement of data? What about the right of those individuals, their data rights? So my argument here is to say that we need a mechanism that transcends borders to make this data privacy regulation a universal right. If we can't do it alone, maybe we can start by blocks. I want to advocate for an East African convention on data protection, or an African Union one, especially when we are on the continent mostly consumers of digital services, but we're not producing a lot. So from the perspective of a regulator, this creates the two-tiered market that I told you, that makes it extremely hard for us to understand what the rules. So for example, for a local company, we will enforce the data protection laws harshly. But when the same individual are giving their data to Facebook, Microsoft, or any American companies, we do not enforce this because our laws, our borders don't extend there. And their laws don't protect our citizens. So this is a really, really, really bad precedent that has been set. And I wanted to discuss this in a platform where we have people that are working on these digital IDs. What I want to ask is a question that is much more pertinent to within the data sets that you're providing. Do you encode in the rights and the rules of how that data should be processed? Because if you're not, then yeah, the law is subjected to everyone's interpretation. So what I want to argue is that we need to shift the way that we've been explaining laws and rules and encode them within some key attributes, metadata within the data itself. If the data could have information on how long you can keep this or how you can use this or what it is that you need else to do, it would not be left to the companies. So my argument here is also that we've seen a shift into a digital era, but we're still interpreting laws like we did in the 16th century when they're subjected to interpretation. This is not the right way to do it. You can actually put limitations on the data itself and specify the right of access and the right of use at the very lowest level possible. And we can do this to ensure the privacy and confidentiality of a citizen's right. My last point that I wanted to, again, bringing these ideas to the table, is that we need to rethink about what it means to protect your citizens' data. I know my colleague from Microsoft said that, yeah, you give someone a digital ID and then someone can follow them around. True, but so does Facebook, track me all around everywhere I go. So why would it be any issue for my government? Not only can they do it, they actually have legal ways of doing it. They can literally go to a court and file a request, and the court will grant them this. So I don't really think that the issue is on the government tracking you. The government can track you. They can pay spies literally to follow you everywhere that you go. If the government want to follow you, they will. I don't think this is an issue. What is an issue for me is, what is the say that we get to have into this? When my data is accessed by a third party, what is my say? Do I get to know who has access to my data? And this is where this digital ID and the people that are building these systems, you need to rethink. If you're building a national ID system for me to use, and it's for a government, what is my role within this? Does it notify me and give me the right to consent or not when my information is being shared by a third party? Can I opt out? If these features are not, again, built in within the technology, we're just putting our people and leaving them exposed. And that was my last point. I just wanted to advocate for the solution providers and for our academia to rethink what are some of these key mechanisms that we can put in place. How can we ensure that the rights of everyone, not just our citizens, because at the end of the day, bits about you, bits about an American, bits about on some AWS server do not distinguish if you are a citizen or not. So the right for privacy should be the same and universal across the board. And I just wanted to highlight that this is a major, major gap in a lot of legislation and regulation that we're seeing, especially across the continent, where we're becoming very, very self-centered. But we need to be protecting the rights of all the same. Yeah, so that is my last point. Thanks.